Hi guys. Today we're going to learn how to play 12-bar blues. Well, what is 12-bar blues? Well, the blues is a form of music that came from, well, it's very American. It came from kind of the South, New Orleans in particular, kind of made its way up the Mississippi. Just for historical context, but for our purposes, 12-bar blues is basically 12 measures of music, and it follows a very specific chord progression. Chord progression sounds like a big word, but really it just means that the first measure starts on one note, the next measure starts on a note, etc. So every measure is going to start on a different note, but there's a very specific pattern which we're going to talk about. It's very easy to follow. Sorry, this is hard for me to improvise on this, but it's very easy to follow. It's very basic. We're just going to start out by doing some very basic things and work your way up to making your own song using a 12-bar progression. And I'm going to kind of talk you through that. I've sent you a Google link that has instructions on it, and I'm going to be kind of walking those instructions through with you today as I show you how to do this. There's also a Google link. Well, it's not a Google link. It's a link to a Muse score, basically a track accompaniment, which means that the piano part will play in the background for you, which will kind of show you the chord changes, and you can play your 12-bar blues along with it, which we're going to do today. Okay? So our 12-bar blues, we're going to call it open string blues because I've used this with my little kids before because it's really easy at first. We're going to base our 12-bar blues in the key of D. So 2 sharps, F sharp and C sharp. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to play a 1-octave D major scale just so that you know what notes that you're dealing with. So I'm going to do that for you right now, and if you want, you can play along with me. We're just going to do it in half notes so that you, again, know which notes. So we're going to start at open D. So those are the basic notes that we're going to be using. The finger pattern, of course, if you're a violin or a viola, it's going to be high 2 on the D and the A. If you're a cello player, it's going to be 3rd finger for that F sharp and for that C sharp. And if you're a bass player, you're going to do 4th finger for the C sharps and the F sharps. Okay, so every measure in our song is going to be based on a chord. A chord, pull this over here. I don't know if you can see this or not, but every measure in our song is going to be based on a chord. So we're going to just, for our purposes, call that 3 notes. Okay? Each chord is going to fit in that D major scale, and it's going to be built on thirds, which is an interval, okay? Thirds means 3 notes. So from D to E to F sharp, D, E, F sharp. So D to F sharp, that's a third, okay? F sharp, G, A. So from F sharp to A, that's also a third. I won't get into what kind of thirds those are right now. That's another story. But for now, we're just going to call them thirds. So every measure that we're going to play is based on a triad, 3 notes. And the first measure is D. And I have it kind of spelled out for you. D, E, F sharp, G, A. And the notes that are in bold are the notes we're going to use. So your first measure, as I said, is going to be based on that chord. So you could just play open D for that first measure for 4 counts, and it would work. 2, 3, 4. Okay? Or you could play 4 chord notes. Okay? Or you could do eighth notes. It doesn't matter. Okay? It doesn't matter. But that first measure, the very first measure, is going to be D. I'm going to write it up here for you. So we're in 4/4 time. Measure 1, 4 counts. I'll just do quarter notes so you can see that. Okay? It's going to be D. Lucky for you, measure 2 is also D. So we'll do the same thing. Measure 3, I'll number these. Same thing. All D's. Okay? All right. So where we go different is measure 5. So we're going to go down here. Measure 5, we're going to change to a different chord. We're going to change to, and I'm going to scroll over here, go over here so you can see it, is a G chord. Okay? So again, it's a triad, G, B, D. And we're going to use those 3 notes in this chord, but for now we're just going to focus on just the G. Okay? So those are all G's. And again, you could just play open G or 3rd finger or 4th finger, depending on if you're a violin or a cello or viola. Okay? Measure 6 is the same thing. Okay? Measure 7 is going to go back to D. Okay? Same thing. Okay. Now we're on to our last 4 measures. Okay? This is where it gets a little bit more tricky, but it's not too bad. Okay? So, measure 9 is going to be based on A major chord. Okay? A, C sharp, E. Okay? A, B, C, D, E. That's where you start. So A, C sharp, E. So that's our triad that we're going to be based on. But again, we're just going to focus on this starting on A. Okay? For just that measure. Then the next measure goes back to G. And then the last 2 measures are back to D. Okay. Let me get this up here so you can see it. I'm going to make sure that you guys can see this. Okay. Back it up just a little bit. Oop, that didn't work. Okay. So measure 1. Oh, let me number these. Okay. Measure 1 is based on D. So it's 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Measure 5, it's going to be G chord. And then D. Then A, G, D. Okay. So you can see that, but what does that look like and what does it sound like? Well, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over here, grab my violin, and I'm going to play for you the accompaniment and show you how this works. Okay? And I will yell out the measures so you'll know where we are. Okay? All right. I didn't put a click on here for it to, so I have 1, 2 ready to go. So I'm just going to have to like start immediately. Okay? Hopefully you can hear this. Let me make sure my volume's good. It is. Okay? All right. So here we go. First time through. 1, 2. That's the D. Measure 3. Measure 4. Now measure 5. Measure 6. Measure 7. Measure 8. Measure 9. Measure 10. 11. Measure 12. I don't know if you can hear that very well. So I'm going to see about bringing my accompaniment over here a little closer to the microphone so you can hear a little better. Okay? This time I'm going to play the quarter notes. I'm just going to play 4 quarter notes per measure so you can kind of hear how that goes. Okay? Hopefully you'll be able to hear this. Otherwise I'm making this whole video over again. All right, here we go. Whew, chandelier. Measure 3. Measure 4. Measure 5. Measure 6. Measure 7. Measure 8. Measure 9. Measure 10. 11. 12. And then it repeats so you can practice that. Okay. All right. So once you get the basics down of that, then we're going to start mixing it up a little bit because it's kind of boring if you just do that.